The International Securities Brokerage Network. A company was just transformed into a securities issuer by Dishno Hornblower & Partners, who prepared a private offering memorandum describing its securities issue and filed it with the Securities and Exchange Commission through a Regulation D filing. Now comes the really hard part: where to find accredited investors willing to invest in this issue. That is exactly the reason for the International Securities Brokerage Network to exist. The International Securities Brokerage Network is a multi-level brokerage network arising from the private equity network, composed of full-time and part-time professionals who distribute private issues to accredited, sophisticated, or institutional investors such as family offices, wealth managers, investment and hedge funds, investment banks, securities broker-dealers, commercial and merchant banks. How to join the International Securities Brokerage Network. When someone joins the network, except as a finder, he must meet some admission criteria and learn the rules of the private distribution of securities applicable to the area he intends to sell securities in. This can include obtaining a license where required, although most jurisdictions do not require such licenses or provide for an exemption when selling a securities issue to accredited, sophisticated, or institutional investors. Upon completion of this learning, either through the International Securities Brokerage Network e-learning website or through one of their training sessions, he must pass an exam and meet a minimum score of 80%. Organization of the International Securities Brokerage Network. First out of the hierarchy is the investor's finder. He's an intervener that only provides an address, a contact, or introduction to an investment source without entering into the negotiation or the transaction. The hierarchy of the interveners members of the International Securities Brokerage Network is geographical due to national securities regulations and composed of the following grades from bottom to top. The broker. When the broker acts as an intermediary between an issuer and equity or debt investors, he's doing a subscription. When the broker acts as an intermediary between two equity investors or two debt investors, he's doing a transaction. Note that equity investors are actually shareholders and the debt investors are actually bondholders or creditors of the issuer. In the International Securities Brokerage Network, the broker is part of a team under the instructions of a city manager. Each time the broker concludes a subscription or a transaction, he earns a commission of 4% on a private equity subscription, 3% on a private equity transaction, 0.5% on a private debt subscription, 0.4% on a private debt transaction. The commissions on debt securities are paid yearly for the duration of the loan, but only if the loan issuer is both actually and currently honoring the debt service payments and the network manager actually received its commission dues. The city manager. The city manager manages a team of at least 6 brokers operating in the area of a town and its neighborhood. Each time one of his brokers concludes a subscription or a transaction, the city manager earns an overhead commission of 2% on top of the private equity subscription or of 1.5% on top of the private equity transaction, and of 0.25% on a private debt subscription, 0.1% on a private debt transaction. The debt commissions are paid yearly for all duration of the loan, but only if the loan issuer is both actually and currently honoring the debt service payments. All commission rates through the hierarchy are down cumulative. This means that a city manager selling directly to an investor will get his broker's commission and his own commission. The regional manager. The regional manager manages a team of at least 6 city managers operating in a region, province, canton, or department of a country. Thus, the regional manager has at least 42 persons to train and manage. Each time one of the brokers of his city managers concludes a subscription or a transaction, the regional manager earns an overhead commission of 1.2% on top of that private equity subscription, or of 1% on top of that private equity transaction, and of 0.25% on a private debt subscription, 0.1% on a private debt transaction. The debt commissions are paid yearly for all duration of the loan, but only if the loan issuer is both actually and currently honoring the debt service payments. All commission rates through the hierarchy are down cumulative. This means that a regional manager selling directly to an investor will get the broker of his city manager's commission, his city manager's commission, and his own commission as a regional manager altogether. The national manager. The national manager manages a team of at least 6 regional managers operating in a country. Thus, the national manager has at least 258 persons to train and manage. Each time one of the brokers of his regional managers concludes a subscription or a transaction, the national manager earns an overhead commission of 0.5% on top of that private equity subscription, or of 0.25% on top of that private equity transaction, and of 0.1% on a private debt subscription, 0.1% on a private debt transaction. The debt commissions are paid yearly for all duration of the loan, but only if the loan issuer is both actually and currently honoring the debt service payments. The network manager. The network manager is a financial company. It earns the spread between the percentage of the distribution commission agreed with the issuer minus the total of the commissions paid to the interveners. The traditional distribution commissions agreed with the issuer are 12% of each private equity subscription, 10% of each private equity transaction, and of 1.5% of each private debt subscription, 1% of each private debt transaction.